Hi everyone, my name is Lee. We're here at Cedar Run today and I'm really glad that you could join us. At Cedar Run we are still closed, but the trails are still open. You are welcome to come. Please don't bring dogs though. You're welcome to come and walk the trail. The plants are out, some animals are out. We have Wharton State Forest right across the way, so you're welcome to enjoy that too. But we love to see you. We really miss you. We do have a playground. I don't recommend picnicking right now because we might get in trouble for that. But when we get back to normal, we would love to see you and have all those features all for you all over again with our playground, our pavilion for picnics and parties, and other things that we have going on. So keep track of our website for the things that we do have going on right now. And as soon as we can open, we'll be happy to let you know. What I wanted to talk about today is our cuter little animals that we get in here at Cedar Run. This is Nazar. Nazar is an eastern screech-owl. She came to us because she had some sort of an impact injury which made her blind, so she can't see really well. She is a great little one for us to take to festivals and different events because she is small, not very threatening, and absolutely adorable. But what I wanted to talk about today is a question that we get a lot. And people say, oh, she's so cute, I'd love to have one as a pet. Well, I want to tell you why that's not a good idea. And the first one is that you need permits, and it takes a long time and a lot of paperwork to fill out. So you need to have the permits in order to have a wild animal. And in order to have a wild animal, you need to have a reason, so that you're either a rehabber or you raise them for a specific reason, but you have to put that on your permits and it has to go through. So permits are the first and foremost thing for having any wild animal as a pet. Now there's a difference between domestic animals and wild animals. Domesticated animals are ones that you would find at PetSmart. So if you went to a breeder or a PetSmart, a pet shop, those animals are okay and you don't need permits for, and lizards are a good example of that. But if you don't find owls in a pet store, it's for a reason. And what I wanted to talk about today is the reasons why. Nazar is an eastern screech owl that has a very specific habitat. Now if you look at her feathers, you would know that she needs to live in something that she's going to blend into so that she feels secure. Nazar typically likes to live in trees that you'll find here in the Pine Barrens. She's not turning around because I think the wind is bothering her eyes, but she likes to live in holes in trees, and it's where she feels secure. Being really little, there's a lot of bigger prey out there that would like to eat her. So she needs to live someplace where she can feel comfortable and secure, especially when it's nesting season like it is right now. So when they live in the holes in trees, they're very specific holes so that she can fit in without having somebody else come join her, like a little squirrel or a woodpecker, cowbirds, grackles, things like that, so that she can feel secure. So people would say, counter to that, well, I can just put a box in her enclosure. No, because it's not the same. She needs to feel comfortable and secure by blending in. If she just has some random box, she doesn't blend in, and it does cause them stress. The other thing that that you would need to be aware of is their specific diet. Because she is a raptor, she only eats live prey. Now, because Nazar is captive here and can't see, we give them dead prey, but she still gets prey that would be appropriate to her diet. So because she's small, she's going to eat things like mice or voles, moths at nighttime, different little animals like that, things that she can carry and put it in her talons, fly to a safe place to eat, and then she'll eat it. So you can't give her things like worms because it's not in her wheelhouse. It's not something that she would eat. So if you're going to try and find a varied diet for her, mice, chicks, voles, things like that, they're not easy to find. They're not something that you can just go to PetSmart and get. So now you'd have to do a special trip to a special place and pay a special amount in order to get her a special diet. And she can't eat just one thing. Like, you can't buy a whole box of mice and feed her mice all the time. no more so than you'd want to eat the same thing all the time. Her body, just like ours, needs different vitamins and minerals and nutrients, so she has to have a varied diet. Now, in that regard, I wanted to show you how we feed her. So I'm going to put her back in the box for just a minute. And this box keeps her safe from predators that might be around here. All right, so when we come to Cedar Run and feed them, what we have to do is, and it's according to our permits, we have to keep track of how much and what she's eating. So, safety first, try to wear gloves, because there are bacteria that are on the food that I don't necessarily want to get. I do wash my hands, but safety first. All right, so when we feed the animals, we keep a record of everything that they eat. So, for instance, we have a red-tailed hawk here. Her name is Eldora. We have a monthly chart of everything and who feeds her. So, for instance, we'll initial it, figure out how much she eats, how many grams, and if there was any leftovers. So I'm just going to close this for a second so it doesn't blow. But when we feed all of the animals, each one has a specific dietary requirement, especially birds, because when birds need to fly, if they have a little extra in their stomach, it's extra weight that they have to compensate for when they go to fly. So weight and how much we feed them go hand in hand. We can't just feed them because they're cute. I know we have a couple of geese here that like to come visit, and sometimes we'll throw some pellets down, but they typically live here. They don't necessarily fly very far. But with birds of prey especially, because they need to fly in order to eat, their weight is an essential thing that we have to keep track of. So having a record of what they eat and how much they leave behind is really important. So when we go to feed them, the night before, we'll take out what they need to eat. So we have a box for diurnal animals. Diurnal means they fly during the day. Nocturnal, they fly during the night. So our nocturnal ones are our owls. Diurnal ones are ones like our vultures, hawks, falcons, things like that. So when we feed them, we have a scale, and everything is weighed in grams so that we can be pretty specific. Now for Nazar, she typically eats about 18 grams, but we don't even feed them every day, because in the wild, they don't always eat every day. They might have their eyes focused on a specific prey, say a mouse is running by, but for some reason that mouse might run under a building or might go in a pipe or a tube or something like that, or they might be detracted by some other prey animal, then they don't get to eat. So that is normal in nature. And we find that a lot of times people tend to give human characteristics to the wild animals, but they're a different breed than we are. So we can't put on them what we would normally do. Now, typically people eat every day, and it's okay because we don't fly. We do get some exercise and activity so we can burn it off, but we don't need that. We don't need to have a specific weight in order to get up out of a chair or to sit down, but the birds do. So if Nazar typically eats about 18 grams a day, this mouse will be a little bit too big, but we have to weigh it out. And this one's 32. So if I was going to feed her this mouse, I'd have to cut it in half. And that would include the tail, the head, the feet, because owls eat everything. They'll ingest the whole entire thing, and then they will regurgitate what their body can't use, such as fur or the tail. But if you look at a pellet that they regurgitate, in there you'll find bones, you'll find beaks, you'll find feet, you'll find nails, and you might even find little pieces of the tail. So we'll give them the whole thing, but maybe cut it in half, because if she's going to eat 18, half a mouse would be right. Now I know you'd say, because she's really cute, I just want to give her that little bit extra, but it's really, really bad. So we have to limit how much they eat. Now, sometimes not all the animals will eat everything that we give them. And one great example is these chicks. So sometimes the falcons, or we have broad-winged hawks, they don't typically find a whole lot of this in the wild, so it's not their favorite thing to eat. And if they realize that there's a pattern in what we're feeding them, a lot of times they might not eat today, but they know that they're going to get something they like tomorrow, and then they'll eat it voraciously. But for a lot of these hawks, they don't normally find these little types of chicks, and sometimes it's just a matter of taste. Some like them, some don't. That's just like people. I mean, some like lima beans, some don't. So, but they have to have a varied diet, and I want to go back to that where I said before about what they eat and how much. Because in order to get the right amount of vitamins and minerals that they need to eat a variety of things that would be typical for that habitat. So if they're not going to find it in that habitat, then it's not really something that they're going to go for or gravitate to. And just like people, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of chicken wings. I'll eat them if there's nothing else, but it's not my favorite thing. Same thing with them. Sometimes we'll find the leftovers, and that's okay. All right. Now, the other thing that we have to do, and one reason that you don't want to have a wild animal as a pet, is that you have to keep track of the weight, but also you have to keep track of their physical features, like their beak, their talons, and their general well-being. So you have to know what's normal and what's not.
We do have a question.
Okay.
Where do we get our chicks from?
That is a great question. We get them from, it's a company, and I don't know the name offhand. They used to be able to donate them to us, but they're no longer doing that. So it's a company that we have to order them from. But once again, if you just have one little owl as a pet, which you should not do, you need to order bulk quantities. So if you ordered bulk quantities, then you would have to have a place to freeze maybe 250 pounds of chicks. So we order 8,000 pounds. So 8,000. I'm sorry, I don't do the ordering. So, but you have to order them in volume. So you'd have to have a place in order to keep a large volume of chicks. But when we take care of these animals, well, one thing that we have to do is weigh them on a regular basis. So we have this is our bird scale, and I touched it, so it has to rewind. But you can't really weigh them on a regular scale because they won't sit still on a regular person scale. So they have to have something that they can perch on. And this is pretty sensitive. So if I touched it, I'm pushing down for about 260 grams. Now it doesn't stay perfect, so you'd have to estimate, because the bird's not going to sit there perfect either. So you have to start to see what's normal. We always weigh them in grams because it's a little bit smaller of a measurement, so we can keep track of the little nuances in their weight changes. Now their weight will change from season to season. In wintertime, they need more weight, so they get fed a little bit more because they have to keep themselves warm, and their metabolism is a little faster. In the summertime, when it's warmer, they don't necessarily eat so much, and they will fly around a little bit more because there's more out for them to catch. So we have to adjust how much they eat gram-wise based on what their weight is. And we won't know that unless we do a daily or at least minimally bi-week or twice a week weight. So we have to keep track of the little nuances. Now, the other thing that we have to do, and if you have cats or dogs, you can sympathize with how much fun this is. But we have to keep track of their beaks and their talons, and they are no fun to cut because they don't enjoy it because we have to hold them in a tight spot just to cut them. And sometimes they can jerk and pull. So if you've ever cut cat nails or dog nails and you get to the quick of that nail and it bleeds, you feel bad, they hurt, it's no fun. So you have to be very careful. So one of the tools that we will use is this Dremel, and it's a good instrument to use to keep their beak at a good level because their beak will grow. Out in the wild, they keep track of it by the food that they eat. So every time they eat something, it brushes on the beak and it sands it down. and it keeps it to the level it's supposed to be. But when they're in captivity and they can't do that, then we have to do that. So we'll trim their beak with the Breville, and then might also use the emery board. But we also have to cut their talons. So these are special scissors that their talon can go in there, and it's easier to clip it. Sometimes at home you might use regular scissors for your cat or dog, but because their toes are curled, this is a little bit easier to do. The other thing that we have to do is we have a special, what's this? Jess cream. Because some of our animals that we'll take out on programs will have leather straps around their ankles. Those leather straps have to be kept moist. So this is a mineral oil cream that we put on that leather so that it doesn't irritate their legs, and it keeps that Jess a little bit more supple. Now the Jess, if I didn't say it before, is a leather strap that we have that goes around their ankles. Sometimes if you come to Cedar Run, you might see that. There's certain birds that we can take out for programs. Those leather straps, the Jesses, make it easier for us to attach a leash so that we can take them out safely. So that's what this is for. The other thing that we will do is when they do have the Jesses on, we use that as an opportunity, and when we're maintaining their talons and beak, is we have to look to see if they have any sort of abnormality on their feet. Now it's really important for birds in the wild to be able to fly from place to place, and it helps to keep their circulation going properly. But sometimes if they don't move around often enough, they might get a condition called bumblefoot. It's from sitting still too long, and there's a bacteria that gets into the folds of their talons, and it will create an infection. But if you just took one in as a pet and you're not aware of that, you might not realize that they have an infection. So they need a certain medicine, gabapentin, when they get that, and antibiotics. Now, once again, here's why you should not have a wild animal as a pet. It's not something that you can go to CVS and get this medicine. And even if you went to a vet, some of this stuff is controlled, and there's no way that you could possibly get it. So if you had a wild animal in captivity and you can't give them the medicine that they need, now they're going to have a very shortened or miserable life because they can't get the medicine they're required to have. And also, if you had a wild animal as a pet and they had an issue, the vet might be required to report you to the DEP. So then there's a whole legal thing. And I can't stress enough that you should not have a wild animal as a pet. I really enjoyed having you guys here today with me. This was a lot of fun. Anytime you have questions, feel free to email us, contact us, text us, call, whatever. We love the questions, and sometimes it can give us a new idea on a program that you might want to see in the future. So thanks for having us here today, and we'll look forward to when we can see you face to face again. Thanks.